Good day, everyone. Our topic for today is all about concepts of validity. But before we indulge ourselves in a proper discussion, let us hear first our objectives. Our objectives for today: at the end of the lesson, students are able to define language testing and the concept of validity, differentiate the differences of validity and validation, identify the four approaches to examine validation, and lastly, reflecting the articulated research validity in an argument.
Now, what can you say about language? Language is an incredibly complex phenomenon involving a number of distinct skills like interacting with each other in any number of languages. What is the use of language? In short, it is a tool for communication. Since we already talked about language, the definition of language, now let us proceed to language testing. Language testing is a measurement of a person's ability to use language in some ways. For example, diagnostic test, assessment test, placement test, and proficiency tests, and many more.
Also known as language assessments. Language assessments is a measure of the proficiency a language user has in any given language. It could be a first or second language.
In academic setting, language testing can assess the student's current abilities and skills to make it more progressive.
They could fall into two categories: the summative and the formative. When we say summative, it is an assessment administered at the end of the instructional unit in a course. For example, midterm or unit examination. When we say formative, on the other hand, it is low stakes, unrecorded, but not graded. For example, drawing a concept map, reflection paper, or more.
It is a tool that serves as a measurement of proficiency, as what I have said earlier, without reference to any program related to a student learning.
Next, we have an understanding of language testing that is critical for applied linguists and language teachers. First, let's have Alan Davis of 1982. Language testing for him regarded as providing a methodology that is of value throughout applied linguistics and perhaps in core linguistics as well.
Providing a methodology means teaching some predefined goal. Language testing for Alan Davis is a procedure, a well planned, structured procedure for solving conflicts within a specific problem.
For Moder and Halleck, language tests may be used to protect the public, as in the case of ensuring pilots and air traffic controllers can communicate effectively in English.
They are more focused on learning or ensuring effective communication through English language. Why? Pilots and air controllers or air traffic controllers are internationally involved in a communication process. Therefore, diverse culture and various languages are inevitable. Since English language is a universal language, they should focus their attention on learning, as it serves as a tool for interconnectedness.
Lastly, we have Kunan. Kunan states language tests may be used as part of the governmental immigration asylum policy. Comparing validity and validation. When we say validity, it indicates how well a method, technique, or test measures something. It determines how the interpretation and decisions are well based on scores from any different assessments. Whereas validation, it is a set of um, processes designed to ensure that the translation is linguistically accurate, correct, culturally appropriate, and validated. It is done to ensure that the translation states in the target language is what the original in the source language intended.
However, they are both important in a concept of research. As of communication, having validity and validation can provide big impact as of creating an effective communication and building a trust with the audience.
Now, let us proceed to the concept of validity definition. As described in the literature, has changed over time to become a broad and rather complex issue. It is defined to the degree to which a study accurately reflects or accesses the specific that the researcher is attempting to measure. You can consider if the information has high validity, if it generates outputs that accurately reflect traits, qualities, and variances seen in the real world, whether it'll be social or physical.
We have four approaches to examining validation.
The evolution consists of the following validation approaches. First, the one question and the three validities, the content validity, criterion referenced validity, and construct validities to answer whether a test measures what it intends to measure. First is content validity. Content validity utilized to assess a test's ability to capture the various phases of a given specific construct. Any measurement method used, whether it'll be a survey or test, must include the pertinent and necessary aspects of the subject it is intended to measure in order to produce accurate findings. Next is criterion referenced validity, means figuring out how well the results of your measurement and the results of the criterion measurement correlate. Lastly, construct validities. Construct validities is an idea or feature that is not directly observable and is known as a construct. On the other hand, you can quantify it by the observation of its associated signs. The second approach is the evidence gathering. It focuses on collecting all potential evidences, compiling information that stakeholders perceived as trustworthy and relevant for answering their questions. Such evidence can be experimental or observational, qualitative or quantitative, or it can include a mixture of methods. Why is it crucial? It's crucial because it supports claims, provides support for claims, assertions, or conclusions. Without evidence, arguments will lack credibility and not trustworthy enough, and could be dismissed as mere speculation. It, is, it established facts crucial for decision making, detecting patterns, ensuring accountability, used to facilitate problem solving. So, in general, obtaining evidence is essential part of the research, analysis, and decision-making processes. It gives one a foundation for comprehension, logic, and proper action. The third one is the test usefulness. According to Bachman and Palmer of 1996, a model of test usefulness should include such qualities as reliability, construct validity, authenticity, interactiveness, impact, and practicality. A test's capacity to measure the objectives it is meant to evaluate in an accurate and consistent manner determines its value in research. It connects to validity as validity is defined as to which extent the content is accurately captures the focal point or what is intends to assess. It could be understood in many ways. Accuracy of measurements, if it is applicable to research goals, interpreting or finding the results to have a meaningful conclusion, generalizability of results. Valid tests impose not just accurate, but also reliable, trustworthy, and compiled with meaningful measurements that support the goals of the study or research. The last one is argument based approach. Argument based approach has evolved in response to the needs of language testing researchers for a systematic approach to investigating validity of the language tests. It operationalizes the ideals for validation presented by MISIC of 1989 and accepted by most language testers that a validity argument should be unitary but multifaceted means for integrating a variety of evidence in an ongoing validation process. The need of providing and developing fact based information to support measurement instruments. Validity is emphasized by argument based approach. Using this approach, several sources of information supporting the test's validity are methodically assessed. It works as articulating the construct, the need of specifying how they are expected to manifest in an observable responses, identifying sources of evidence, evaluating evidence, constructing the validity argument, transparency, and documentation. Researchers can systematically assess and defend the validity of measurement tools by using an argument based approach to validity, which offers a solid framework for interpreting and application of research findings.
Now, let us proceed to articulating a validity argument. Michael Cane stands firmly in the tradition of Mesick of 1989, arguing that we validate interpretations of scores rather than the scores themselves, thus placing himself in what Chappell terms the interactionalist approach.
When we say interactionalist approach, the dynamic and multifaceted nature of validity is emphasized by the interactionalist approach to validity, which sees it as a continuous process involving interactions among various factors such as the test takers, the assessment context, and the intended interpretations and uses of the test results. All things considered, the interactionalist approach to validity emphasizes the dynamic and interactive nature of validity, assessing the significance of taking into account context, incorporating various viewpoints, realizing the dynamic nature of validity, and concentrating on interpretation and application when formulating a validity argument. There are two advantages of this approach. First, it avoids the more traditional checklist approach to research by Iwashita et al. 2001, encouraged by hierarchical models that require attention to each heading in a list. Traditional checklist means when used in evaluation, Checklists provide guidance for the collection of relevant evidence used to determine the merit, worth, or significance of evaluand. For Kane, checklist, checklist plays an important role in establishing the credibility and utility of the checklist, particularly if its purpose is for evaluation. Second, it is more resource friendly as research is directed at potential problems with a specific interpretative argument. Being resource friendly in terms of validity, being resource efficient means crafting research techniques or processes that demand minimal resources like time, finances, or equipment, yet yield valid outcomes. These guarantees efficient research execution without compromising the precision or dependability of the results. Essentially, being resource friendly or conscious regarding validity entails refining research methods to attain valid outcomes while conserving resources. Through thoughtful resource allocation and the adaptation of efficient approaches, researchers can carry out rigorous studies that offer significant contributions to their fields. Jamal Abedi, on the other hand, he deals with the accommodations to tests and assessments, which can be defined as changes or alterations to the test in order to compensate a test taker for some disadvantage that they face. According to him, the reason is that any accommodation should reduce the impact of construct irrelevant factors such as the disability or taking test in a second language. Construct irrelevant factors or CIFs in language assessment can greatly affect the accuracy and consistency of the evaluation. CIF are aspects that affect how well a test taker performs but aren't directly linked to the skill or knowledge being tested. This might cause validity threats, bias, reliability issues, fairness concerns, misinterpretation of results, and many more. In summary to Abidi's ideas about language testing, it's crucial to tackle construct irrelevant factors to uphold the validity, reliability, fairness, and precision of language testing. Test developers and administrators need to work for these correctly to reduce the impact, especially crafting tests, managing the environment for testing, and applying impartial and consistent scoring methods. Second, if the accommodation would raise the scores of test takers who would not normally be eligible for an accommodation, questions may be raised too regarding the fairness of the practice. Ensuring fairness in language tests is crucial to guarantee that every test taker, irrespective of their background or situation, has an equal chance to showcase their language skills. By having fairness, according to Abedi, cultural sensitivity, accessibility, bias reduction, language proficiency, and cultural knowledge, transparency, and equitable scoring can be achieved. Abedis aims to develop language assessments that effectively gauge language proficiency by assessing understanding, communication skills, and cultural awareness. These tests strive to be inclusive and applicable to real life communication situations. Any questions, clarifications? So if there's none, thank you for listening.